guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Blondest Podcast. I have a new boy in the chair today. It is not Tyler because he has no trauma, which we're all jealous of. But today we are with JB, and he has created such an amazing platform. His wife is a longtime client of mine, and I was talking to her during one of our appointments, and she was telling me all about you. And I was like, oh my God, I have to check this out. And you are probably the coolest person I've ever followed on Instagram.
That's so nice.
You really are.
Nice. I really appreciate it.
And I love your videos. They are truly like something that has been so big for me this year is my healing journey. And something that I pushed away for a lot of time because, you know, when you go down that rabbit hole, I feel like it just opens up so many things that you want to suppress.
Yes.
And for the longest time, I'm like, oh no, if I just keep myself busy and I keep working, like I'm going to build this business that I'm building. But what I learned, and I've talked about a million times on Instagram and my podcast, is it doesn't go away. It just grows. And then I hit that point where, you know, after 6 years of just working 24/7, pushing away all this trauma that I didn't work through, like it just boils up to a head. And it's just like bigger than it was if you had just chipped away at it little by little over the past 6 years. So it was really interesting and really amazing to hear some of your journey and hear about, you know, how you heal and all of that. But I talk every day, so I want you to introduce yourself and tell our followers a little bit about you and your story and how you got into this.
Yeah, so I'm JB. First off, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, I'm a huge fan of yours because Chloe has talked about you forever. I mean, like the last, 4 years? And so like, I mean, it's been, she's so huge in the face, skin. What do you do?
Skincare.
Skincare. I'm a guy, so like maybe I should be more into it.
No, your skin looks great. I'm actually looking at it. I'm like, you actually have really good skin.
Thank you.
So you steal some of her stuff.
Maybe that's what it is. I mean, I actually don't put anything on my skin.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's crazy. Maybe you know more than I do.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, I don't know.
Men are just special. I swear. It's so annoying. Like they can do nothing and look better than us. So it's fine.
But yeah, thank you for having me on, and I'm so excited to dive into whatever. I'm down to talk about whatever.
Okay, so tell us kind of how you got into this. So I know you were a youth pastor.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
I don't like talking about it, but let's talk about it.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, we should have talked about what not to talk about before.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, jump in. You tell us anything. I cuss on here all the time. I say everything, so you're good. We're not like PC.
Me too. Okay, cool. So were you raised in a Christian home?
I was. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was. So my dad was a pastor. And yeah, pastor's kid. He was my coach. He's also obviously my father. We moved around. I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, and then we moved to Arizona for 3 years, and then we were in Texas starting at the age of 9. And you know, just grew up in church. And you know, as a kid, you don't really know.
Yeah,
like, it's just like that's just what it is.
It
like,
is, yeah.
This is who God is. This is what I believe. This is what my parents believe. They're right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I could go down a deep rabbit hole. I mean, usually that's kind of how this all ends up.
I love rabbit holes. Okay, that's so like my favorite thing ever.
So you mentioned like I was youth pastor. And so I don't think I ever really truly deep down wanted to be that.
Mm-hmm. It was just kind of felt like you had to.
Yeah. Yeah. In a weird way. It's so funny. I was, just to like go off of that, I was talking to this guy a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to say his name, but his dad was, he jumped out of airplanes. What are they called? Paratroopers. And, you know, he has a lot of issues with his father. And I was like, well, what do you do? And he was like, well, I sell equipment to the Army for paratroopers.
Yeah.
And it's like this very subconscious thing, especially with a man, and I'm not a woman, so I don't know, but maybe even with women, but for men, when it comes to fathers, we really look up to them at a very, very, very deep level,
mm-hmm.
even if the relationship is skewed
mm-hmm.
or there is, you know, trauma there. And there definitely was with he and I. You know, I was the firstborn. I'm the oldest of 2 or 3 brothers and have 2 little brothers. And so, you know, it's their first time parenting and them trying to figure it out. And so, I was a football player. And so I played football, went on scholarship to North Carolina, which is why I love Carolina blue.
I love that. It's a good color.
Yeah, was there. And then too many concussions, retired my junior year, and then really didn't know what to do.
Oh, wow.
And, also was not in a really good frame of mind.
Yeah.
Just with myself and not knowing who I was and not knowing how to deal with.
I'm sure because football was probably your whole life, at that point. And so
that was the work.
Yeah.
And then when it all came crumbling down,
I can relate to that with dance. When I quit dance, that's when my depression got the worst, because I was like, if you asked me who's Savanna, my whole adolescent years, from age 3 up to 18, I would have said Savanna's a dancer, and I feel like when you lose that, you're like, oh fuck, who am I?
Who the hell am I?
Yeah.
So it was a bit like that. I also was a bit of a drug addict, and so like I had failed out off of scholarship. I'd failed 3 drug tests, and it was just weed. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, they actually
I dabble in the weed.
Yeah, me too.
I love marijuana. My girls know that.
Yeah, but it's actually legalized in the NCAA now. So I was like, what the hell? It's like the only thing that's helping my concussions. But I definitely knew better and made a mistake, and we actually made 3 mistakes. I failed 3 times.
What? It's hard to stop the reaper.
I know. With that and just being like, well, shit, like I'm no longer a football player.
Yeah.
It's my senior year. I have 1 semester left and I'm not on scholarship anymore. I ended up finishing out and graduating somehow. I don't know how, because I did not go to class.
Yeah.
And just didn't really know who I was or what to do with life. And so, in those moments of you don't know what to do and you're not really in a mind frame or a place to heal.
Yeah.
You kind of crawl back to
what's comfortable or what you know.
What you know. Exactly. Yeah. And so my dad said, hey, you can come, serve on the something team at the church. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I came back to Dallas, and within like 6 months, and mind you, I'm still like a crazy motherfucker, and like, vaping in the church bathrooms and like, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. Adderall all day. I need the concoction to like live.
Yeah.
Like I was pretty deep in addiction.
With Adderall,
Xanax,
all of it.
Really painkillers was like, with football, just like painkillers was, I love painkillers, still do.
Who doesn't?
But I don't take them anymore.
That's good.
If I do have them, I'll give them to Chloe and let her like just slowly pass me them.
Out.
So I don't
your limits.
So I don't eat them all at once. So yeah, that's one thing I'm learning is my limits on things.
That's good.
But so within like 6 months, I was the youth pastor.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I think I was a pretty cool youth pastor.
I feel like you'd be cool, yeah.
But like,
probably
I don't know.
More attention
I don't
in church.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
You were cool.
I don't know if they like learned anything about, our Lord and Savior, but we definitely had a lot of fun.
And sometimes that's what kids need, though.
I think
when they're going to church, don't be hard on yourself. Because
No.
I do think, for me, when I had those teachers that sometimes didn't focus on teaching, but were just like fun and there and like an escape from whatever I was dealing with at home, like that makes a huge impact in kids' lives.
Well, it was really fun for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, COVID hit, and, we went to online church and, all that kind of stuff. And then the addiction got a lot worse. Like for a long time, I could control it. Like I had control over, I'm not going to let my wife know. And like, I'm really good at hiding this because my parents are pastors. Like I've learned to live this like double life. And all of it was very internal, which for me, it wasn't easy to hide. I mean, secrets suck. It sucks to have secrets. But after a while, like late 2022, going into 2023, it just became very physical. Like I started to lose a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
I weigh like 220 pounds. I was like 170.
Oh, wow.
Like I looked terrible. Like I couldn't eat. Like I was just so anxious all the time. And like the Band-Aid of the substance wasn't working anymore. And the intention behind the substance was to numb.
Yeah.
And so in April of 2023, I'm still, the youth group is growing. I'm being celebrated, blah, 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 blah. And I had like a massive, I thought I was dying. I thought it was a heart attack, but I had a panic attack.
Oh, wow. And that was your very first panic attack?
Ever.
Is it not the worst thing in the entire world?
Literally the worst thing in the entire world.
God.
Panic attacks.
Horrible.
Hate them.
I had my worst one about, 2 years ago in New York. And I literally thought I was dying. Like, I had never, I could not breathe. I was like throwing up. It was So bad. So bad. Would never wish that upon my worst enemy.
They give you some Ativan and it goes away. So that's good. If you have to go to did you have to go to the ER?
So I was in New York, thankfully. So I had a breast reduction like a year before, and I had diazepam, and I always just travel with it just so I have it just in case. And so I literally had to take like 2, and I was just like a zombie. And then my assistant thankfully was with me. And so she like got me on the closest flight. I missed the entire classes I was supposed to teach that weekend. Like it was so bad. And there is not, panic attacks by themselves are horrible, but being in New York City,
even worse, I bet.
Away from your family, your baby, your dogs, your cats, your comfort. Like I literally was like, someone put a knife in me and just like end it. Like I don't want to feel like this. Like it was so debilitating.
I totally agree. It's like the worst feeling
and you
ever.
don't get it until, you know, you actually go through it. And that's when people are like, oh, you know, like I'm anxious to have a panic attack. I'm like, there's like such a big difference because with that, it is so physical.
Like, I don't know. I mean, Chloe's over there, but I mean, it was like 11 p.m. We had just made a CPK from like California Pizza Kitchen, you know, the ones that you put in your oven from Target. And like, I had literally just taken one bite out of it and I bit down and then like
your tongue go numb.
Everything, like something just happened. Like my eyes started twitching and I was like, what the fuck? And I remember just being like, Chloe. And, I couldn't walk.
Oh, no.
Like it was like
disorienting.
Extremely physical. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Ended up going to the ER. And from then on, I mean, I still deal with panic a bit, to be honest. Like you deal with it once and it's like the fear of dealing with it again.
Yeah. That was me like the entire year after it happened. I had to do hypnotherapy actually, and that was the only thing that worked.
I need to do that shit.
No, you do. Seriously, it rewired me because I was almost like having panic attacks that I was going to have another panic attack.
Where did you go?
I'll give you my therapist's name. She's amazing. Yeah, she's over in Flowermont. She is awesome, and I honestly thought it was like a bunch of bullshit, honestly, with hypnotherapy, but she is the real deal. And like one session of that, and I've never experienced that again.
Hypnotize the shit out of me.
Right? Like, I'm like, if it'll work, do it.
Please. No, because seriously, like I'm still like, I know that, you know, people might see me on Instagram and like, I do feel like
it's so different though. And that I hate that because people say that about me too. Like, how could you be someone that's anxious or have anxiety when you're, you know, have this big platform and, you know, you're so public and share everything. And I'm like, I'm sharing all this, yes, to 300,000 people. You're a bigger scale than me, but I'm in my bed. I'm at home. I'm with my family. Like I'm not standing in front of all of these people. I'm not in a social setting.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I think that's also a cool thing about it. Like the vulnerability side of saying like, you know, we're just humans too. We're figuring life out as we go. And like panic and anxiety is still something that like I'm learning to deal with. Yeah. I mean, I've had some seasons of work and things and business and, you know, can make things a lot more stressful.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And some seasons are different. But once I had the panic attack, I was like, fuck this. Like, check me into the psych ward.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm crazy. Like, I never want to experience that again. And so I started going to therapy because I'd never been to therapy. Really, it had always been like, go to church camp or go get prayer at the front.
Yeah.
Like, let's just pray about it. And I started going to therapy. And within like the first couple sessions, the therapist was like, I think that like you need to go to rehab. And I was like, damn.
You're like cool. I just want to talk it out. And now you're trying to get me to go somewhere.
Like, this is why I don't go to the therapist. Like at that point, I was like, they're going to send me off to like some like bullshit place that like, you know what I mean? That's going to take all my money and it's a scam. You know, that's how my head was. And they can't help me. Like, they don't know what's going on in my brain, blah, 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 blah. And so within a couple months, I was, you know, I let the church know, like, my dad's not the head pastor. He was on the executive team. And so I kind of had to just like tell him like,
this is what I've been struggling with.
I'm going to rehab. Like, I don't know what y'all want to do with me. Like, you probably want to fire me. I mean, I've never heard of a church pastor going to rehab. I know a lot of them need to go.
Did you feel like that was really hard for you to like admit and just like feel? Weirdly
enough, only to my dad.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest person to admit it to.
Yeah.
Because I tried to hide it from him for so long. But I think everyone else like kind of like had like an inkling.
Yeah.
Like at that point because of how I looked. And, you know, how inconsistent I was in life. And but he was really good at like only focusing on the good and ignoring the parts of me that he might have known needed attention, but he'd rather not think about that.
And just focus on the good parts of you.
Yeah, just focus on what, which that's a whole nother story in itself. But so yeah, I was youth pastor up until rehab, and then I went to rehab for 2.5 months, and
okay, nice.
Was like the worst, best time of my life. I mean, probably a lot like your wilderness experience, except I was 26 and you were 15?
Yeah.
A little different. And
a little bit.
And I heard, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I heard you were like captured out of your room.
Oh yeah, no, they literally, it's called getting gooned. Like they like abducted me, and I thought I was getting sex trafficked because I was 15.
This is not
and
funny.
It is funny because if you think about it, I'm like this tiny little 15-year-old in bed, and I'm just think I'm gonna like wake up the next day and hang out with my friends, and then these two massive people come into my room.
What the hell?
One woman, one man, and they're like, "You're coming with us. Your parents signed away your rights." And I'm like, "Can I give my cat a hug?" They're like, "There's no time. We have a flight to catch." And I'm not a fighter. Like that's honestly probably my worst thing, but I'm glad I didn't, because if you try to fight your transporters, they like put you in holding, and then they like take away privileges from you before you even get there. So I'm like, I'm just gonna like play this and like win. Like I'm very much like a winning competitive mindset. So I'm like, fuck yeah, if I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna like be the best. I'm gonna be number one, and I'm gonna get out quicker than anyone else. And I think through that, like almost like gaslighting yourself into happiness, it actually worked. And it was the craziest thing. And it wasn't even what I was intending to do. I was just trying to fake it so that I could get out and get home. But it actually like changed my life. And I'm that person, and I feel like you're the same way. There's so many people that were in wilderness with me that are not still on the earth with us today, or, are back into drugs, or, just can't hold a job, can't hold a relationship. And, everyone deals with trauma so differently. I've always been the type where it's like, I've already dealt with such shit in my life that I'm not going to let that be my story. I'm not going to let that be like, oh, well, I had this childhood trauma, so that's why I can't have a successful marriage, or that's why I can't work for myself or achieve my wildest dreams. Instead, I was like, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to let those things control me. I'm going to take control of my own story and let that be that fuel, that fire inside of me that makes me better. And it's like, wow, I'm so glad I got to experience this other side of life that would never have existed if I didn't try.
Right. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think, for a lot of people, as I've, not saying that like I have, all of this knowledge and I can analyze all this stuff, but like looking at a lot of different people in a lot of situations, just from, whether it be a follower that follows me and or a person that I know, it's like people want to heal. They really want healing.
Yeah.
But there's like a step that you have to take within that, which is what you just explained, which is like there has to be some acceptance, but also some understanding that like just because these things happen to you doesn't mean that's who you are and who you have to continue to be.
It's a chapter.
And honestly, a lot of people in the kindest way I could say it, they use it as a cop-out.
Oh, 100%. I'm glad you said that, because I think so too. People, it's like their story. It's like, oh, well, I can't do this because I come from a family that has XYZ, or I, had this situation when I was younger, or, it's a cop-out. It's like that excuse. I always talk about this too with business during COVID. It was like, a lot of businesses bloomed during COVID. Mine was one of them because I'm a fighter. And I was like, I'm not going to let this time knock my business down. I was only about a year into business. And, the people that I do think there are situations for sure, like before anyone comes from me, that like, make it impossible to survive during COVID. But for a lot of people, and I've had so many clinics tell me this, like it was kind of like, okay, well, COVID happened, so I can make that the excuse. They already had a business that wasn't doing great. And so COVID was the reason that they were like, okay, I'm just going to shut it down, instead of trying to fight against that resistance. So people like to find something.
Love that. Yeah. And I think that that's where the hiccup is in a lot of people's lives is, there's a quote by Denzel Washington, and it's from The Equalizer. I heard it in a movie. I think it's The Equalizer 2. Have you seen The Equalizer?
Never.
If you like watching Denzel Washington just kill motherfuckers, it's the best movie ever.
Sounds like Lance would love that.
Yeah, it's so good. But he said, if you pray for the rain, you're going to have to deal with the mud. And I think a lot of people and this is just tying back to what you're saying. I think a lot of people pray for change in their life, and they pray for the rain, and they pray for change, and God gives them mud. COVID happens. Panic attacks that you can't control. You have to go to rehab.
Yeah.
And people look at it and face it and say, I don't want to fight that. I'm done. I'm just going to be my victim self. I'm just going to live in shame. I'm just not going to ever face it. And then they live their whole life mad at God that he didn't answer their prayers when their prayer was the rough seas in front of them. And I think that's like been the one thing that I've learned even through like the last 2 years. Cause I only got out of rehab, a little bit over 2 years ago. But what I've realized is there's some seasons and some things in life that happen that suck.
Yeah.
That put you in make or break situations that make you feel helpless or hopeless, that make you feel scared, or, panic levels are higher. But when you ride them out and you have a foundation of understanding that you're going to get through it, and that you were built to get through it, and that you're not a victim, and that you have self-choice, and that you have the ability to not be controlled.
Yep.
Like you have self-control and make your own choices. And you come out on the other side of that, you realize that bleak winter that you went through was actually what brought you this beautiful summer. Exactly. And that's I think that's the duality of healing in life is, although rehab sucked really bad, although I'm sure COVID sucked really bad for your business, it's like, it was actually great, honestly. But it was COVID. Scary at first, you know? Yeah, no, it was. At first, sure. It's like when you look at it, for me, like for rehab, it's like, fuck this. I'm in Waxahachie, Texas with 20 dudes that I don't know, and they took my phone. Yeah. And how was that experience for you? I look back and like, all I can do is like laugh. Kinda. Like, I mean. Did you take it serious like when you first went, or were you kind of like, I'm a lot like you. Yeah. So like I tore my ACL my senior year of high school, and like I was like, I'm going to have the fastest recovery of all time. Yeah. Before I'm going to play college ball, and like you're competitive. Yes, very. Same. And so like I'll never play a board game with you. We probably would end up fighting. So with that, it's like I was like, okay, I'm here now. I don't know if Chloe's gonna leave me or not. Like my parents for sure fucking hate me. Like my brothers think I'm an idiot. And there's like 4 horses here, and we're living in this mansion. There's all these different dudes from all these different walks of life. It's so funny. I mean, we had like an emo kid that was 18 years old to a train engineer that was like 50. And you get all of these like characters into this one room, and we're all there for the same reason. And it's either because we can't stop drinking or we can't stop taking drugs. Yeah. And the first month was hell, like just hell, because I was facing, number one, I didn't have like my Band-Aid anymore. Yeah. Although it had not worked for like the last couple months, like the drugs. And so I started facing this like blender of pain. And I'm sure that you went through this in your wilderness experience. But you're like, I feel like shit, and like I'm so scared, and I don't know what's happening to me, and I'm breaking, and I don't know what this is from. It's like all of life's trials and tribulations or traumas or things that you've been through, or like actions and things that have happened as a kid, and you don't even know what it is. And that's the crazy thing. Yeah. It's like then like all of these suppressed memories, when you go through your healing journey, you're like, oh my God, did this happen? Or is this like a weird dream? Yeah, like, oh shit, my dad's a dick. Yeah. I still love him, but like he was a dick. Yeah. And like, oh my gosh, that's my mom. With my mom. You know, my mom was just so fearful. Like, and really, and so, or my coach is like, why did I listen to those dumbasses? Like, why did I let that affect my identity? Yeah. Like, And so you start to realize the root of your wounds. And for me, it was just inadequacy. I just didn't feel good enough.
That's crazy. That's what mine was too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just always trying to like prove myself. And there's just so much. My mom like put me and my brother against each other a lot growing up. And again, you know, I loved what you said earlier. It was their first time living too.
Yeah.
And it just sucks because I feel like our generation is so fucked up because it's the first generation that actually talks about mental health. And our parents, like, it was like not something you talked about.
No.
Like, when I told my dad I was suicidal and depressed, he was like, you just need to pray more and eat more vegetables and walk. And I'm like, no, like there's an imbalance. Like that's not going to help me, you know?
Right.
And, you know, our parents didn't get therapy. So they just had all their generational trauma and then they just passed it on to us. And for the longest time, I hated my mom and I hated my dad for letting her treat me the way she did. But then I started to hate my grandma because I'm like, okay, it's not my mom's fault. It's my grandma's fault. And I was like, no, I don't hate my grandma. I hate my great grandmother because she's the one that started this, you know? And it took me like all this like blame game to where I'm like, you know, it's everyone's first time living and like it sucks. And I finally got to a place where I'm like, you know, if my mom can at least just acknowledge that it was fucked up, like I forgive her. I'm a very forgiving person, but like some sort of accountability and just acknowledging like, hey, like I did the best I could. I hear you and all of the things I did. You know, weren't good and were wrong. But, you know, I think that's like the hardest part.
Yeah. And I mean, this might be getting a little bit too philosophical, but like, you know, you talk about that and it's like this generational trauma or, you know, the church calls it generational curses. Like,
yeah.
And you really start to like, as you're going through the healing process and you're seeing these things and you're like, you know, I now see what's being passed down to me. And then you do start to think about, okay, well, my mom's mom and dad, and then my dad's mom and dad. And then like, but it didn't even start with them.
Yeah.
Like where did this all begin?
Yeah.
Like what?
It's crazy to think about.
I know. That's where I'm just like, what are we battling that's unseen, and like, what's the origin of it? And maybe that question will never be answered because like I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I just know it's fear.
Yeah.
And I know it's inadequacy, and I know it's, you know, beliefs that are not true about ourselves. And
it's so crazy how powerful the mind is too. Yeah. Like that's something I think that's always set me apart from people just in my industry and just in general, like my age doing, you know, what we're doing is your mindset is so powerful. It's like what you feed yourself, what you say to yourself. I'm so big about that. And you know, keeping people around me, like, and, you know, some people might call me delusional or think, you know, I mean, I definitely have bad days and I'm not like, you know, if my car gets hit, like, obviously I'm not going to be happy about that. And I'm not going to be all like, there's a bigger purpose in my car getting hit, you know, but I definitely do think, you know, what you speak to yourself, the words you say, the music you listen to, like the things you watch, the people you're around, like it is subconsciously changing who you are at your core. And I'm very conscious about that because I cannot have, like I've been in the darkest season of my life, you know, where I didn't want to live and I never want to get back to that place. So I'm very much, you know, try to focus on the good and just try to, you know, keep myself away from anything that's going to, you know, bring out negative. Do you think that
you'll ever be called back into the negative to bring light to it?
That just happened to me the last 6 months. Yeah.
I want to hear about that. I'm interviewing you,
okay,
but I just got to know.
Me. Yeah, I think, you know, with my parents, you know, I had a really rough childhood and people, it's so hard because it wasn't like I was like, well, not from my parents. I did go through sexual abuse as a kid, but, you know, I had a roof over my head. My parents were middle class. Like, you know, I had a good childhood and I get it. You know, it's hard to say, you know, I wasn't like starving or anything. But, you know, my mom was very competitive with me. And, you know, for a very long time, I was her pride and joy. And it really clicked for me one day, 6 months ago. And I just everything started crumbling down, like my whole identity, everything. But basically growing up, you know, I was a dancer and I was my mom's pride and joy. Every practice, she was there. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was there for me. She pushed me hard. I mean, I had a lot of like anorexia and stuff later on. But I don't blame her for it because that's kind of how the dance world was, you know, and any kind of sport, even with boys, like you're trying to meet those calories. Like your parents literally are treating you like a professional athlete when you're like 6 years old.
Yes.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame her for that at all. I mean, every parent was doing it and I wouldn't have been as good as I was if she didn't push me to that level. And then I started my period and I got boobs, and it was like this light switch, from where I was like this pride and joy and I was her everything. And she was so supportive, would buy me anything I wanted to. You can't look better than me. You can't be better than me. And, just complete switch, and that's hard to deal with when you grow up and your mom's your best friend. She's your biggest supporter. And all of a sudden now you're competing with her. And that for me shaped me in so many ways, like I lost my best friend. Yeah. I lost my best friend. I lost that person. We'd have good times. It wasn't always bad, but there was like this deep insecurity that she had that she passed down to me and wanted me to not be as thin as her or, look as good as her. And it was just so fucked up. Mm-hmm. And I knew this was happening. And, I think the hardest thing is like when you suffer and no one else is there to save you. Like my dad saw everything that I was going through and he just like let it happen. And so then I started to hate him because I'm like, you're my dad. You're supposed to protect me from all of this. Like you're supposed to be the person to like put mom in her place, as right. like men are supposed to do. Well, back then now, gender roles. I put Lance in his place. Don't worry, guys. But that was really difficult for me. Right. And, then the whole wilderness thing happened and it just got worse from there. And then I started my business and she was so envious of that. And so, still to this day, we struggle with that. Like I can definitely see like, she wishes she had done what I have done with my life. And I get that. And I know she gave up so much to raise us, but it's like, at the end of the day, you should want more for your kids. And so we still kind of have that. And I haven't talked to my parents. I didn't even think I was going to talk about this on this episode, but I haven't talked to them since Thanksgiving. Mm. And that's been really hard. And I want to, it's just, I feel like it was a rough time around the holidays. There was a lot of tension and, I have a kid now. My son is my everything. And I just want him to be in a safe, healing environment. And I feel like a lot of the stuff since he's 3 now, since he was born, like I just suppressed because I wanted him to have a relationship with them.
So they are in his life, like, in a way.
In a way. Well, not for the last 4 or 5 weeks, but they have been. And, it's just, my parents were not there for me when I started my business. They didn't support me emotionally, financially, physically. Like, it was a really lonely time. And I knew my dad wanted to, but my mom wore the pants, still does. Like, it's like whatever she wants is what happens. And
it sounds like Chloe. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding.
And I feel like I get some of that too. That rubs off on me. And then I see myself treating my husband the way that my mom treated my dad growing up. And like, it makes me resent the hell out of her because I don't want to be like that,
Yeah, I think that's, number one, I'm sorry that you went through that. Chloe,
no,
obviously, okay. I was kidding. but Chloe's awesome. But it's funny you say that and explain it like that. Obviously, like, my story is not exactly the same as yours and even my wife's story. Like I'm thinking about it as you're talking, like her stories is not the exact same as yours, but the themes are the same.
What was your like thing that you were suppressing with like the drugs, did you feel?
I
know you mentioned inadequacy.
Yeah. I think for me, it was really, I think it comes down as a kid, like in growing up, it's like you want connection with your parents.
Yeah.
And when things start to get a little, even, you said you and your mom started competing and you have to ask yourself, like, was she doing that like consciously? Like, was this like a reaction? Was this subconscious? Was this something like deep in her that had been like,
oh no, it's totally subconscious.
Yeah.
She had no clue. And that's why I've like tried to forgive her, but it just fucked me up, man.
Yeah.
So bad.
So it's the same thing, just it was acted out for me in a different way with my dad and my mom. Really, for me, it was more with my dad.
Yeah.
And so, and I couldn't really put my finger on it for a long time because he was, God. Like, he is a pastor. He's a man of God. Like, everyone goes to my dad for help. He's, everyone loves him. Like,
so you almost felt like gaslit in yourself.
Yeah. Like,
that's how I felt.
I'm fucking
too.
Crazy.
Because my dad wouldn't talk about my
mom.
So
bad.
My brother wouldn't talk about my mom. And so it's like, you're just going through this. It's like an alternate reality. You're like, no one else is seeing what you're being treated like or the way that you're feeling. Right. And it's lonely and it's scary. And then you think you're the problem. And I think that's where a lot of my depression came from, was like, I thought it was me. And not until I became a mother and, moved out, I like got this new perspective on everything. And I'm like, no, like that was fucked up. Like that was wrong. And I was like, I can't believe that I felt so sad for younger Savanna that she ever thought that this was her fault. So it wasn't.
I know. I feel the same way for little me, and I'm glad that you've come to those realizations. One thing that's really helped me lately, just dealing with my dad, and I'm sure you're the same way as me. Like,
yeah,
I'm all for restoration.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for like, yo, like, can we like figure this shit out?
Yeah.
Please, like, can you like come to, please?
Yes.
Like, can you see? Like, I don't need you to get defensive. I just need like you to validate.
Yes. And that's hard for some parents. Look at the pride, you know, like they don't want to admit it.
Right. Because I mean, I get defensive too in life. And like, and it's
your instinct. It's I think our human instinct is to be like, well, I know that was fucked up, but I did it because X, Y, Z, you know?
It's because they're working out of the same root as you, which is inadequacy. And if they were to validate you in their inadequacy, then they would be saying that they're inadequate and they don't want to believe it.
No. And
so that's the issue with it is you get bullshit.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like with your brothers, like, because my brother, I mean, he's pretty like perfect. Like, you know, we both grew up with the same parents, but like he didn't experience what I experienced. And I think that was really lonely for me, that we could like live under the same roof and like he just had a completely different childhood, you know?
Yeah, I think me and my middle brother, we're closer. He's 26, about to be 27. I just turned 30. Me and him had a lot of the same experiences. Baby brother, who's like, he's 9 years younger than me and 6 years younger than my middle brother. He had a completely opposite experience, but he's 21 now. And, you know, we've gotten a lot closer, me and him, and my brothers were very close, but I've started to watch him and the same things coming out in him.
Yeah, that came out in you.
Yeah, but their relationship was different. But that's what I'm saying. It's not about the relationship. It's about who's transmuting this. Yeah. So it goes back to the person, and so Jet is his name. Jett is his name. My youngest brother, and like, yeah, he was like an only child for like his whole high school, all of his high school years. I was off at college or had just gotten married. Like, he was the baby of the family. He and my dad were like very close. And so I didn't really know, like, I was almost sometimes like jealous of like, damn, like, you know, we grew up in like the small house and then like I go to college and then dad gets a raise and y'all get a fucking pool. Like, damn, Jet, like you have the setup and you have a media room. Like you should be like so happy. But like, I see it in all three of us, inadequacy.
Yeah. And
for me, it came out, and I was like I tried to be like the perfect child, and it came out in me in like a very people pleaser type of way. Like, I'm going to manipulate the fuck out of the situation and like make sure that like I look good. For my middle brother, he didn't give a fuck. Like he would tell him how he felt, which I always thought was really cool. And I wish that I could do it, but like, and he still does. And then my youngest brother is like a mixture of us both. And so, but what I was going to say is, one thing that I've realized in the months of recent is, I mean, just being completely honest and vulnerable, like Chloe and we've been on our own like business venture and like really life venture of like bringing something to life. And like, I know I have a brand online or like a following, but like, that's a different thing than having a business, or that's a different thing than building a life and building a home and bringing, you know, even thinking about bringing kids into the world. And and in those moments when like it gets really hard, or you do something and you fail, you wish you had dad, or you wish you had mom, and so I would say multiple times over the last probably 6 months. The last 6 months have been pretty rough, but like, and it's one of those seasons that I talked about. It was an answer to prayers that I just had to go through. But in that season, I realized that how much I needed a dad, but I also realized how much my little brothers needed a dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be something in here that I'm missing. And because like I was searching externally for that. And maybe you've already come to this conclusion for yourself, but like, if it weren't for his lack of fatherhood, then I wouldn't be the man that I am. And
where there's lack, there's growth,
right,
in our own selves, and we fill in those spaces,
right?
You know,
and I can see him for who he is right now, and believe that maybe if I become that man for myself that I've been yearning for, which is like, that's the only answer.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something, having a child is so healing when you're able to like be that. I mean, it really, like, having my son healed me in ways I didn't know I needed, which makes me want to cry. But I mean, truly, the true healing, I thought I was healed until I had my son. And
yes, I can't wait.
It's the best. It's the best. Like, it is the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah. And I think that's the loneliness of this whole process is, like I said, people want to heal, but there's some loneliness to it because you figure out yourself. Yeah, you figure out that like no one's here to save you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say, well, God already saved me and like I'm going to heaven, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about like right now. We're talking about like no one is going to save you but you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people don't want to hear that because like it's
accountability, and they want to put their blame on other people because it's so much easier and it hurts less.
And deeper than that, they don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
To heal themselves.
Yeah. No, I think the relationship with self is so important. And I actually talked about this on the podcast recently is we as a society, if we think about it, we wake up, we get on TikTok, okay, where our brains never have a piece of quiet to be with self. And being with self is the most important thing for us humans to have. I mean, we are full of distractions. You get in the car, you put on a podcast, you're listening to music, you get to work, you're with customers all day, you're on client calls, meetings, etc. You get back in the car, put on more music, you get home, you either have a family at home, so you're momming or being a dad or, you know, talking to your spouse, or you're putting on a TV show, and then you go to bed and you wake up. And you're never self-aware. You're never having a conversation with yourself. And that is something I made a huge switch in my life years ago of just, whether it's driving in silence, having 30, 40 minutes in the morning just to myself, no phone, nothing, just downloading information and listening to Savanna and who I am. It has changed me. And when you think about how many people don't do that, it's scary. But then you also realize why people are the way they are. They're so disconnected with themselves. How can they don't have a relationship with themselves. They're searching for songs, music, artists, pop culture, all of these things that fill this huge void inside themselves. And then they just feel empty or inadequate because they're comparing themselves to other people online, but they're not fueling themselves with self. It's huge. It's a huge problem.
Huge.
Awful.
And it's I think what's even worse about it is like, it's like the easiest thing to do is to not be
it's like another type of drug, you know? It's like you're just suppressing everything by never allowing yourself to be alone. And I used to be that person growing up because I knew I was so scared to be alone with my thoughts. So, you know, I'd either want to be high to go to bed or marijuana, guys. Don't worry. They're going to be like, what kind of drugs is Savanna doing? But I've talked about this before. I did go through a really bad Xanax phase for like 2 months of my life that I'll never get back and never remember. And what got me out of it, thankfully, was the scariest thing. I woke up one day and I was looking through text, and I'm like, I had this whole text thread with some random guy, and I'm like, I don't know who this is. I've never met him. I'm like, where the fuck was I last night? Like, to this day, there's an entire day that I just don't remember what happened to me. And that was when I was like, hey, I can't do this anymore, you know? And it started with my parents, you know, didn't want to get me anxiety meds because I've always been super anxious growing up, and I was on Adderall too. So we're very similar with that. And my parents just like wouldn't get me medication. So I started buying it just literally for anxiety. And then it became, well, everyone's like, well, why don't you take like the full bar? And, you know, then why don't you take 2? And then I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like, I don't have to feel anything. And then it just became, thankfully it only lasted 2 months, but that was a big wake up call for me. And then I was like, hey, I just can't mess with that anymore. And addiction runs really deep in my family too. And so, yeah, but to jump back a little bit to what you said about, you know, not having that made you who you are today. If my parents thought I shit rainbows and butterflies, I would not be as successful. I would not have been a multimillionaire at 23. Like, you know, I think honestly, yes, I'm not going to discredit myself. I'm a very fucking hard worker and I'm very savvy with business, but it pushed me to be like, well, fuck you. Like, you know what? You could have helped me and you didn't. And I'm going to make more money than you did. And I'm going to be successful and I'm going to have all of these things that just like lit a fire under my ass. And it just propelled me. And I think with that and the passion of what I was doing, like, it was just like, I was unstoppable, you know? But I really and truly, like, the biggest driving factor of my success was my parents not believing in me 100%. If they did, I really, really don't think I'd be where I am today. So I'm thankful for it. I really am. And it's shitty to say that. Like, thank God my parents didn't believe in me, but thank you, Mom and Dad. I mean, really, it made me who I am.
And I think that's just like so crazy. Because like at the end of the day, like it's true. I believe that everyone on this earth, if we are self-reflective, is a teacher. And some people only teach us one class and we move on from them. But like, there's so much to learn about you through the relationships that you have. And I think for a lot of us, those relationships are our parents or our guardians or our grandparents or whoever raised us. And so, yeah, like, I don't think for me, I don't think my parents didn't believe in me. I think my parents were just so controlled by fear that they tried to control me and put me in this box. Yeah. We're not letting JB come out because this is who we need you to be. And so, yeah, when I hit my breaking point in rehab, I was just like, fuck this. And there is a bit of rebellion that comes with that. And,
that was me in high school.
I think that's a very healthy thing.
I think I went through my little time that you had, but mine was way younger.
Yeah. And so there's a rebellion and an anger that comes with it. And then as, you know, you individualize and you take those steps to set those boundaries and become the person that you are, you know, doubts arise within you. You start to question yourself. Like, because I think the way that it's meant to be, if I'm being honest, is we're supposed to have people around us that are encouraging us and loving us.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not saying this for everyone, but I think that's what our generation is. And I think that's why our generation is so hungry, is because I think we're all living the same tragedy in a way.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a tragedy in a bad way. I think there's a happy ending, but I think that all of us, anyone that I've met, all of us have a bit of this shit in us. And our generation is just so open and there's so much information and there's so many things to help connect the dots that they didn't have before. And so really we have an opportunity to be a human race that we're supposed to be for our children and their children. And so, you know, what you can call that a generational curse breaker or whatever.
I love that.
But
it's so true.
That shit's heavy.
It is.
And so some people would rather not hold that weight, stay in the box that they've been put in. It is
and
easier.
It's safe and it's comfortable.
It is. But at the end of their life,
they're going to regret it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was. I'm like, I hate regret.
Right. Like
we were the same. We want to win. So I'm like, I don't want to stay in this cycle.
Right.
So let me ask you, do you talk to your dad now?
I love him.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you guys get to that point? Was he really receptive when you came to him with everything?
I love him, but he doesn't have the place in my heart that I'd like him to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And so I think he really tries. And like, but I also think that he's full of shit sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like, you know what I mean?
And two things can be true. And that's one thing I hate when people are like black and white, because
we live in the gray.
In the gray.
Yes.
100%.
The world in this life is all in the gray. And so like, I realize that like he has his own, and I think this is the most important part of the journey, is the compassion piece.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to be angry and rebellious, but there comes a time where it's like, he's a human being, I'm a human being. My mom's a human being. Your parents are human beings. It's like the way that I've been hurt, and I feel that it's the same way that they've hurt and they've felt. Yeah. And the actions that maybe that they've placed upon me are maybe the same ways that people acted to them. Like I said, the themes are the same. It's just what I think trauma is. But I think you get to a place to where it's just like I love you, and like I want you in my life, but like you don't have that place.
Yeah, or power.
Yeah, you don't have that place. That's a great word to say. You don't have that power anymore.
Yeah.
And when you take away that power from someone that's used to controlling you, sometimes they take a step back too.
Yeah.
Because the relationship was only based on them controlling you. And now there's nothing left to control. So how do I connect?
Yeah.
How do we even have a relationship?
Yeah.
If you're not going to listen to me and you're not going to, read this scripture, like I'm telling you what to do, like, and so, but I think that that's what a part of growing up is like, hey dad, like I can make my own decisions. Like,
yeah.
And so I don't know what a parent is supposed to look like now with me being 30 and them in their late 50s. What are they supposed to be to me?
Yeah. Support system.
A support system, right? Like a friend,
cheerleader, friend, sounding board.
I have that in my mom.
I love that.
Amazing. And she's grown so much, and like she has done what you said.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's been, I mean, for me and Chloe both. Like, and so being able to have that really tight, honest, fuck around relationship with her.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that as a kid because she was a pastor's wife. Like,
yeah.
But with, so that's what I'm saying is like, I just have found some compassion for my parents, and I think I've found some compassion for my grandparents, and like whatever, because at the end of the day, we're all just little kids at heart.
Yeah.
And we've all been hurt.
It's all our first time living.
Yeah. It's all our first time living.
I know. I need to text my mom back. I'm sure she'll hear this, but it wasn't intended. It was just like around the holidays, I'm building a house and a med spa right now. And so I was like, I'm just like not going to do Christmas this year because I had there's just some family drama, which I won't get into because that's like a whole podcast. But anyway, and then one day turned into 3. And then I was like, well, fuck, now it's going to be like when we talk, it's going to be like a whole conversation. It's going to be like a deep thing where it was just like I needed space. Yeah. And now that it's been 4 weeks, I'm like, I think I keep putting it off because I'm like, I don't have the mental capacity because now it's like a thing.
Right.
And it's not that deep. It's just like I needed some space. And now it's like been 5 weeks. So now it's like going to be like a whole, like, I've never not gone this, well, I guess wilderness, but other than wilderness, I haven't gone this long. So I just need life to calm down. I wish I could just actually be like, we're cool and like, let's not have a big combo,
just send her an
please.
audio message.
I don't have the mental capacity, and that's what I know it's going to be. And so I think that's, I don't want my followers to think, oh, there's like this whole tea. There is, but there isn't. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk to you while we're wrapping up the end. Tell me about, so we talked about rehab. You get out. I want to hear how you started this platform, what you're doing now, where everyone can just kind of dive me into like how this started for you. Because I mean, it's amazing. And like, no offense at all. But like I have clients that'll come in like, oh yeah, like my husband or my boyfriend like has a social media and like da 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 da, and like you pull it up and it's like, oh, that's so cute. They have like 12,000 followers. I was like, she said that. I've never obviously met you before. I'm like, oh my god, he like has 1 million followers. I'm like, that is insane, and you did it so quick too, which I think is just so inspiring, and like your mission and what you're putting out there. Like the other night, Lance, my husband, and I, we were eating dinner at the table and we were just listening to some of your videos about healing, and he started following you and he loves it because he also came from a family that kind of just didn't talk about feelings.
Yeah. And
I'm a big talker about feelings. I always have been. And so he's, as his wife, he's like, I don't know how to relate to that because I didn't come from that. So in some ways you're helping our marriage with him, like kind of learning about it's okay to feel, and you don't have to be like this in this strong masculine of like no feelings and nothing there, because it really just hardens you and then you just suppress and it causes anger and outburst and all of that. So thank you. But anyways, enough about me.
Was not always like that. You know what I mean? Like I was an angry football player, got into way too many fights and got sued one too many times. And so like it took a lot of rehab is like really broke me, and like
you went in thinking you could kind of like cheat the system, but then you actually really found healing.
I found me like for the first time. Like, and that's the other crazy part. And I know we're wrapping up, but like,
no, you're good. Honestly, as long as you're good, we're good.
Oh, I'm good. But I think one of the craziest parts for me is like, Chloe knew me. We met right after I retired. So this is like 2000
with football.
Yeah. Right after football retiring. So that was like 2017, going into 2017. And I never knew myself. Like, I mean, I knew like I had moments of myself and like, but I was living this like double life. And then we got married. Like we got married. It's almost been 5 years. So for 3 years of our marriage, like, you know, I'm a huge douche, you know, and I'm a pastor and like, but I'm lying to my wife. And, so it was like, almost like I didn't know me. And then I met me in rehab, which I know sounds weird to say, but like, I didn't fucking know me. Like, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was.
And that's the scariest thing.
But
I've
then
been through that.
Chloe got to kind of meet me for the first time.
Would you say, she's sitting over here, would you say he's a different person than when you first met him? Yeah. Yeah.
I was a chameleon. Yeah.
I love that.
Which I'm so thankful for, because she's the one that got me into rehab.
Wow.
Like, it was her telling me like, you better fucking go.
Yeah.
Like, but I think it's because she saw value in me that I couldn't see because of the filter of inadequacy that I had over me. And so, and it still reigns true today, like in our marriage or in decision making. Like, I can still be a little inadequate little bitch and not believe in myself. And that's Chloe's voice to me is, it's always, do you understand like your value? Like, do you understand what you can bring to the table? Do you like, and so she's helped me so much with like getting to know me and being able to accept me. That's been a huge part of our relationship. And so I think that's like, after rehab, I kind of just like took like 6 months to chill. I got out in August of 2023. And then in March of 2024, what was this, 2024? No, March of 2023. I can't remember. March of 2023. So I got out of rehab in 2022. March of 2023. I was like, I feel like I have something to say. Like, people are gonna probably think I'm fucking weird. Like, like, I don't know how to use a camera. I don't know how to edit.
Was this your personal Instagram page at the time?
Yeah. And it had like, 3,000 followers, and like people knew me from playing football at North Carolina, and like all my high school friends followed me. And so like,
scary.
Yeah. It's like, and then Mel Robbins, I don't know if you know who Mel, she like, there was a post that she made right when I started, and she was like, your Instagram is not for your friends and family. It's for the people that you're trying to reach.
I love that.
And so I was like, all right. So I got a camera and I learned how to use a camera, and I learned to edit. And in May of 2023, I made my first post.
Like a legit camera. You're not using an iPhone.
No, I have like it's called a Sony FX3. I'm
going to get that info later.
Yeah.
Because your quality is amazing.
Well, it has to do with lighting. And I can help with this if you ever need help. But lighting and color grade, those are all things that like I've had to learn kind of on the fly, and then editing, and the music and the feel and the ambiance, and like you just start to build something as you gain the skills to do it. And so tell me
about this first video though. So you post this first video, and what is it your story with addiction? What is it about?
It was just like, I don't know, like a quick thing on anxiety or addiction or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but like really in my head, I had a plan on how to grow it. And I was like, this is just going to take consistency. So I'm going to post like 5 times a week and just like ball on them. And just like go.
And you're competitive. So it's like, when we have some personalities like us, like, and that's the thing about having an addictive personality is like, sometimes you can put that towards something so good for you,
right.
And it's like, you can be like, okay, yes, I have this, but how can I like make it a good thing? Which I think too, and you might get this, especially like as he keeps going, Chloe's going to get this too. Like you don't stop. And then they're like, hey, you've done enough today. You can like, you're good enough. And I think that's kind of what I've struggled with as of recently is like, it's like never enough. You're never doing enough in clinic. You're never doing enough for your team. You're never a good enough mom. You're never a good enough, boss, whatever it is. And so that's something heavy, it's like it almost switches to like you don't feel good about yourself at the core, but then it's like what you produce is how I loved myself, and that was this last 6 months what I've been healing through is like, yes, I've grown this amazing business, but it was all because of this really deep wound of like, I'm not good enough. My parents said I'm going to be, this make $30,000 a year and live on their couch and be nothing because I dropped out of nursing school, So I'm like, I have to prove this wrong. And it's like you get so addicted to proving this point and just being amazing and being like number one and all of that it just becomes an addiction. And then, it takes over your life and your relationships.
And then you get there and you hit
and it's never enough.
Yeah. And then the question becomes,
what's next?
Yeah. Number one, what do I need to do to make this feeling go away? But really it's just like, damn, like I just need to like love me.
Yep.
Like this is fucking cool what we've built. Like why am I, like it's cool. Yeah. Like, and I have a hard time seeing that. Like, I'm
imposter syndrome.
I'm my biggest critic. And did I say that right? Like, are people going to understand that? Like, but I think, okay, so I started posting and then a video like popped off in like July.
Okay.
And then I was
this is 2023.
Yeah, 2023. Then I was at like 20,000 followers. And then by December, I was at 200,000 followers.
Oh my God.
And then, so really within a year, this last 2024, I grew like 1.2.
Wow.
And probably one of the
congratulations first of all, like that. I hope you know how huge that is.
Thanks.
As someone who's been doing this for 6 years, yeah, I think I'm just too niche.
No, I think what you do is awesome.
Maybe it's because I've posted my feet.
Okay. No, but all I can say is that like that didn't fulfill
any hole.
No.
And but you're helping others, which is so huge.
Yeah, but there also is there's a hole to be filled. Like, yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now. Of like, I think it's cool to like think you're cool.
Yeah.
And I think kind of like maybe for a long time, it's just like way easier to like, just berate yourself in your head.
Yeah.
And like,
I just like parents that are like, don't over talk about your accomplishments because you're gonna be brat.
Yeah.
I had parents that minimized everything I did.
Like be humble. Like,
or like, if you got a good grade on a test, it was like that's an expectation. I'm not gonna. Why would I say congratulations when I expected that from you? And so I think we go, growing up with that kind of parenting, you just never celebrate yourself.
You don't, and you don't step back and look and realize holistically. Holistically,
I whack that all the time.
Like with. Not only like even with you, like your brand and what you've grown and your business and your family and the shit you're dealing with your parents and like look how far that you've come.
Yeah.
And I think we can get, for me, like I can get very, zoomed into just one subject. But like when I really look back and 2024 was like a year full of bullshit. Like if I'm going to be honest with you, there's still some shit that I'm like trying to cut off that is connected to 2024 that is, not good, that even when it comes to like business and things like that, and just like a lot of fuck ups.
Yeah.
And a lot of like really hard times. And a shit ton of self-doubt. But at the same time, like I'm growing 1.2 million followers. Like what the fuck? Like I was like depressed as fuck this summer, like bad.
Yeah.
And
no one knows.
Yeah. Like, and so, I don't know. I think that like I just turned 30 and I'm like, well, Jesus was 30 when he started. Like, I need to like grow the fuck up. Like, you need to stop being a little bitch, JB. Like, it's time to like, I think deep down in me, like I can revert back to that victim mentality sometimes and that blame game. And it's just
it's a comfort place. It's what we know, you know? It's hard not to go back to it. It's so
easy to get into it. And it's easy to let that control you and let that control your attitude and let that control your outlook and in your relationships. And it's like, I'm not letting that shit do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I have control. And you know, people talk about, well, we surrender and we have no control. And like, I believe in surrender and all that, but like, we have a lot more control than we think.
Did they teach you the whole serenity prayer in rehab?
Oh, yeah. God grant me serenity
to change the things that I cannot change. The wisdom to change the things I can.
Yeah, I can't remember it.
And the courage to know the difference. Wait, no.
And the courage to know the difference.
Or the wisdom to know the difference. The courage. It's one of those.
It's one of those. But yeah, so.
There was a point where I wanted that tattooed on me. I'm glad I didn't. I'm not kidding.
No, I'm so glad you didn't get it on there.
Yeah, I definitely had a little bit of that wilderness high where you're just like,
I get it. See, I came out of rehab feeling the same way. Yeah. Like, I'm a badass. Like, let's figure this out. I'm sober now.
Yep.
But yeah, I think
it's crazy. Tyler, on the 28th is my if I went when I was 15, I'm 27. How many years is that?
10, 9. No.
9?
11.
11 year anniversary.
12. I'm so
From when I got
math.
kidnapped. I am too.
You said 7, it was 12. I was like 11.
I don't even. Oh yeah, because I've been with Lance for 7 years, so yeah, that wouldn't work.
So 12 years.
Isn't that crazy?
Since the wildy.
I know.
It's crazy.
No, it actually is.
But yeah.
I love that. So tell me now, what's next for you guys? Like, what is the plan? No plan? Plan?
Oh, there's like so many plans happening at once. So we're just devising. It's just been months of figuring it all out. And so
you have the Sappy House.
Yeah. So that's like the main thing.
Tell me what it is.
It's really hard to explain.
I'm glad you say that because I was trying to figure out. I'm like, it's like a vibe. It's what it is.
Let's just say that's what it is.
Sappy House, Sappy House.
Sappy House is just like a vibe. That's what it is for now. But
I love it. I think it's gonna. What I'm hoping and what I kind of feel like you're gonna do is make it this community of people and hopefully have like events and stuff so you can bring people together, do some healing stuff.
There is like 15 things that has to do with Sappy House and the Sappy brand. I have a coffee table book coming out. I like love home. I think that's like
You're a home buddy.
Yeah, I am. And I think that's kind of what we base the whole brand off of. And Chloe's like a huge mastermind in the midst of like everything that I do.
Amazing.
Even like the look, the art, the clothes, like it's Chloe. So like I'm not just some dude that just like understands fashion. So
this is all Chloe.
All of it.
No way. Okay, you're coming.
No, I will say I do have some. I've always had some like.
So was this like
style.
Were you always like cool dressing like this before rehab?
No.
So this is like this new era of you.
Yeah, this is just. Do
you feel more yourself when you you just feel so confident now?
Yeah, that I just wear what the hell I want to wear.
I love that.
And I love hats. I have hair. People wonder. I mean, I am thinning in some places. So.
I got a serum for that.
Do you have serum?
I do.
I mean, I have hair but there's a thinning part right here.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't like talking about it.
Everyone has hair holes. It's okay.
But yeah, there's so much coming with Sappy.
Exciting.
From clothing to a coffee table book, which is like it's an art book full of quotes that like it's really a big kids like book that they'll love to read. We worked with tons of artists around the world to like bring together this really awesome piece of art. The podcast Sappy Hour I'm
excited for that.
Is hitting the market here pretty soon.
It's exciting.
What else? Sappy University, which is that'll be more of like courses and things like that, and bringing in specialists and things to really help people with their mental and emotional health and spiritual health and whatever it might be.
An amazing resource.
So there's just a few things that we're working on, but like
just a few.
It's
just a small amount.
It's just like
teeny tiny, right?
Yeah, it's just it's been a lot of work, and so we're trying to just one thing at a time. But
amazing what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But we have Sappy House built, and that's the best part.
Well, I love that, and I love that you're a man doing this, because I think too men have such a hard time with emotions, and I think it's just really inspiring, and you're going to help heal so many, not only men but also women, that have been going through something and just feel alone.
Yeah, I love women, but like I'm here for the boys.
Yeah.
And
I think they need it the most. I mean, there's so many people that are there for women's resources, but for the men, like, they're always told, I mean, God, my brother deals with his own stuff. He had a pretty good childhood, but I'll never forget, like, my dad being like, don't cry. Like, you only cry if you're a sissy, and, like, you can't have emotions. And my brother used to be such a soft kid.
Here's what I can say. Yeah. Here's what I can say for women is, like, y'all just wait on us, because like there's a generation.
Once you're emotionally developed, there's no stopping you.
Yeah, there is a group of men from the age range of 18 to 35 that they care about this shit.
Yeah.
And like, we're not all, I mean, I was a meathead for a long time and like getting in fights, but like there are a lot of men that are after healing. I opened up something called Sappy Hotline, which is going to be a part of the podcast where people call in and we have conversations. And
that's going to be amazing.
Like 90% of the emails have been dudes.
Wow.
And they're just opening up. And so I think for me, like obviously with the clothing and the looks and the aesthetic and like I think women like just all of it. But I think and I am here for women, and I want women to know that. But like, I'm a dude.
Yeah.
And like, I know what these guys are going through, and I know the thoughts that they're having, and I know where they're at. And like, for a lot of the time, my demographic has been heavily women, and like, that's great. But like, as the brand grows, like it's more and more men. And so I think that's why I'm here, is to help everyone. But like,
especially men.
I think I'm here to like put a fire under men's ass.
Yeah.
And be like, I think we might've been taught wrong, and like, we have a responsibility to heal, for our wives, for our children, for ourselves, if we're single. And I think in a world of men that do that, while at the same time women are doing it, I think women are already so in tune. It's
just kind of natural.
Yeah, it's instilled
in us from a very young age.
And so like, y'all are already
be
so
soft and be in touch with your emotions. But men, like with my brother, I mean, it's the opposite.
Right.
And so I think, when you shy away from that, it just suppresses.
Yeah.
And
y'all are already so receptive to what I might be saying. And it's taken some time to drill it into the prefrontal cortex of the boys that like we can feel too. And like, we have the ability to still be men, and we can be safe places, and we can be safe for ourselves, and we can be safe for others. And we're not scared to feel. We're not scared to, I think that's what a true king does, is he's able to laugh and cry, and he's able to war, and
feel it all.
Yeah. And so I think that's, for a man, I think we've just been like, we're so one-dimensional that it's honestly fucking sucks.
I never really thought too deep about that, but you were so right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Chloe's taught me so much about it. Like, I mean, but like, even me still, I'm still dealing with like, trying to like, I got to get out of that old mindset of like, it's like I never learned how to feel, and now I'm learning how to feel, and it's really fucking uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, yeah.
And so, but it's also very healthy.
6 months ago, and I was like, "What the fuck are these feelings?" Like, I don't want. Like, I'm a boss, I'm a CEO, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and it's like, I don't think healing's ever done. That's the thing too. I think we're always going through different stages of healing. I never think there's like a point in our life where we're like, "Oh, I'm healed, I'm good."
Completely agree.
It's just like you continue to just get better.
Yes, completely agree with you. So yeah,
amazing. Okay, so he on Instagram, it's JB _Copeland.
Yep.
Amazing. Not hard to find. But thank you so much for being
Yes.
here. Any closing thoughts for the listeners?
Any closing thoughts?
And give us something philosophical.
Something
No
philosophical.
pressure.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay, there's one thing that I've been like really living by as of late, and I did it in a video the other day, but it's called living life with thick skin and a soft heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
soft skin.
no, just thick skin. Well, or for you maybe
Thick
with
and soft.
the thick-skinned, soft heart.
Yeah.
But your face can be soft, obviously.
Yes, there we go. Okay, good.
But really what that is like, it's a metaphor to say like, we have the ability to like have boundaries. We have the ability to have like self-trust and self-confidence to where the arrows and the words and the actions of others can't harden the purity within us. And I think for a lot of my life, I was so soft-skinned, and like there was no, my heart was just so opened up to be hurt or to be let down,
Mm-hmm.
that, and I didn't trust myself, that like it just hardened over time. And I think that's where a lot of people are, is they just have hardened hearts, from our parents to whoever you think, like, you know, everyone. And I think the goal is to shed that hardness off of you. Mm-hmm. And that comes through some pain, and that comes through, you know, learning how to dive into it and, you know, processing. But I think we also can be badasses and can have some thick skin. Yeah. And like not take everything so personal, and like not, and the only way that you do that is to have
yourself. Yeah. Then you realize that you just don't take it so personal. You're like, okay, you know, XYZ is saying this because there's something going on with them. It has nothing to do with you. It's projection.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's a big thing. I will say one of my favorite things about myself is that I have always kept a soft heart no matter how much shit I've gone through, just because I feel like you connect with so many more people when you are open and receptive, and like when you're able to share those connections with others, and more good happens from being open than it does from being closed off.
And your love is never wasted.
Ever.
I think that that's one thing that people have a hard time hearing, is they might give love, but that love is never wasted.
And our generation needs that
more
than ever.
Love. Peace and love.
Love.
But also some sassiness and some badass. Like I think we need that too. Yeah. So, and people
boundaries.
that aren't, and boundaries.
We love boundaries.
And so, that's what I'll leave your following
love
with.
It. Thank you so much for coming. You are amazing. I'm sure we'll get many requests to have you back. But
awesome.
Thank you, besties. We'll see you next Monday.